Hello friends, welcome back to CEC Gurukul lecture series. I am Dr. Jay Malik, Assistant Professor of Pharmacognosy at University Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Punjab University, Chandigarh. In my previous lecture, friends, we discussed about how pharmacognosy subject was developed. Johann Adam Schmidt gave the term pharmacognosy, which is a combination of two Greek words, that is pharmakon and gignosko. Pharmakon means drug and gignosko means to acquire knowledge of. So pharmacognosy, we can say, literally means to acquire knowledge of a drug, and basically it is a stream that deals with the study of the crude drugs that are obtained primarily from plant origin, but later on drugs from animal and mineral origin were also included. And we also discuss about their gradual development of the subject pharmacognosy, how changes took place during the 19th century with the isolation of various phytoconstituents, then introduction of microscopy, then what developments took place during 20th century with the advent of chromatographic techniques and in vitro bioassays. And in 21st century, now pharmacognosy has developed and emerged as a multidisciplinary subject, which also helps in new drug discovery. Friends, today I'll discuss about the scope of pharmacognosy, and by scope I mean that whatever knowledge we gain by studying these crude drugs in pharmacognosy, how we can apply this knowledge in different facets of science. So we can say that in continuation with the previous lecture, we can say that pharmacognosy has a great scope in drug discovery, systematic studies of traditional drug or remedies using ethnopharmacological approach, bio and agrotechnology of herbal drugs, quality control of herbal drugs, safety regulations of herbal drugs, intellectual property rights in the field of herbal drugs, and veterinary drugs. Now these are the areas where pharmacognosy has huge scope, and apart from these areas, there are certain other allied areas where pharmacognosy has a lot of scope, and I'll discuss each and every aspect in detail now. So coming first to the drug discovery aspect. Now according to an estimate, there are around 9 million species of living organisms on our planet, and out of those 9 million, 6.5 million species are there on land, and 2.2 to 2.5 million species are in sea. And out of these 9 million species, 86% on land and 91% in sea have not been described or catalogued. And when we say that not described or catalogued, it means that either we don't know about these species, anything about these species, or these species have not been identified, or they have not been studied scientifically. And out of these 6.5 million species on land, there are around 5 lakh species of plants that are being divided in more than 600 families, having more than 16,000 genera. So around 5 lakh plants are there on our planet, and out of these 5 lakh plants, only 30 to 40 or at the max 45,000 plant species have been documented with at least one use. So we can say around more than 4 lakh species are still there to be evaluated for their medicinal use. And in 2016, 1,730 new species of vascular plants have been identified, and their names have been indexed in March 2017. So here we can see that still we are in the process of discovering newer plant species, and these are being indexed. And as mentioned in the previous statement, that 86% of the plant species or the species of the living organism have not been described or catalogued. This is an augmentation or of that statement. So if we go into the drug discovery and approval process, from 1981 to 2010, around 1,355 new drugs were approved, and approximately 27% of those drugs were from natural sources or were derived from natural molecules. And during 2000 to 2013, 317 new drugs were launched, and 55, that is roughly 18%, were of natural product origin or were derived from natural products. Thus, we can clearly see that there is a huge scope in the field of drug discovery where plants is concerned, and we have lot many plants to be validated or evaluated scientifically, and to involve them in the drug discovery process. It's not that the plants, the drugs obtained from plants are not in the market. There are certain well-established drugs that have been obtained from plants, such as paclitaxel, vincristine, vinblastine, and podophyllitoxin for their anti-cancer properties. Then we have morphine for its central analgesic action, digitoxin for its use in congestive heart failure, curcumin for its multifacet activity, quinine and artemisinin for their anti-malarial activities, and silibin for hepatoprotective activities. And all these are the well-established drugs that are obtained from plants and are currently used today as well. Now, apart from the scope in drug discovery, there is another major problem that is cropping up nowadays, that our lifestyle has changed a lot, and with the changing lifestyle there is an increase in the metabolic disorders, and these metabolic disorders have one more issue, that they also lead to the related disorders. For example, if we take an example of a disorder which is very prevalent in our country, that is diabetes. Now, diabetes is a kind of disorder that also leads to other related disorders, such as nephropathy, that is kidney damage. Diabetic neuropathy is there when diabetes affect the nerves, and similarly another disorder, that is stress. Stress has seen a surge in today's world, and stress also leads to various other disorders related to our cardiovascular system or our central nervous system. So thus we can say our changing lifestyle has also caused an augment in various disorders, and treatment over the period of time, we have seen that the treatment with modern medicine has shown various side effects, and therefore there is an unmet need for safer and more effective drugs, and that's why man is once again moving back to nature. And it's my personal belief that for every disorder there is a cure in the nature, but the only problem is that we have to identify that cure, we have to explore or discover that cure, and we have to rationally use that cure. But there is no doubt that Mother Nature has provided cure for each and every disorder. So all these factors, data and increased interest in plant-based medicine straightway indicates that there is a huge scope in the field of herbal drug research and drug discovery from plants. Further, plants also provide phytoconstituents that can also act as lead molecules. It's not only that the molecules that are obtained from plants, they themselves can act as drug, but they can act as lead molecule for the development of further newer, effective and safer drug molecules. So if we take an example is diasgenin. Diasgenin is obtained from Dioscorea deltoida and other species of Dioscorea. And in the previous lecture I told you that Dioscorea is the genus that is named after Dioscoroids, and diasgenin that is obtained from different species of Dioscorea is commercially utilized for synthesis of various hormonal steroids. Similarly, artemisinin that is obtained from Artemisia annua. Artemisinin is a well-known anti-malarial drug, and it is also used as a precursor or raw material for synthesis of more effective derivatives of artemisinin, that is artemether and arteether. So we can clearly see that the natural products or the phytoconstituents which have shown various pharmacological action, they can also act as lead molecules for the development of newer and effective medicines. Next scope of pharmacognosy is in the systematic studies of traditional drugs or remedies using ethnopharmacological approach. Now, ethnopharmacology is an area of study of a drug or remedies that is being used for a particular disorder by different ethnic or cultural groups. Now, these drugs or remedies are part of that empirical knowledge that is being passed on from generation to generation. Either that is passed on orally, or these are on certain written documents. So these ethnopharmacological knowledge, or that empirical knowledge that is being passed from generation to generation, and this knowledge is a large pool of information about herbal drugs for various disorders and their remedies, which is still lying untapped with these tribal or ethnic people. Why these are lying untapped? Because most of these ethnic or tribal people have no direct contact with the modern world. They don't have any direct contact or access to the modern medicine, but still they are curing their diseases, their disorder, and they are curing their diseases or disorder with the help of that empirical knowledge that has been utilized from their previous generation and the current generation. Further, when I say that this information is lying untapped, it means this information has not been scientifically validated using modern scientific methods. Whatever knowledge that has been passed from generation to generation, according to their belief, that is effective. But if you want to incorporate that particular therapy or a remedy or a drug into the modern system, first it has to be scientifically validated. So there is that information is still lying untapped, or we can say it is still lying scientifically unvalidated. Further, majority of this information has not been scientifically validated as per the modern scientific methods. Further, it has also been found that the new drug discovery based on ethnopharmacological approaches is a very effective strategy. One aspect is that this information, or the ethnic information or the tribal information about the drugs, is lying untapped and has not been scientifically validated. Second aspect of ethnopharmacological studies is that whatever drug discovery occurs through these ethnopharmacological approaches, it's a very effective strategy, because these drugs or remedies are being used by these tribal people or ethnic people since ages, and one can surely say that since these drugs or remedies are being used since ages, these are safe for humans. So this make studying those drugs or the ethnopharmacological approach to study those drugs a very effective strategy in discovering newer and effective or safer drugs. So in continuation with this aspect, new drug discovered through this approach has a very high success rate. Obviously, when the drug is safe in humans and it has been used by humans since ages, so we can say that these are safe, and such therapies have high success rate, because most of the drugs, when they are discovered, they fail after some time because of their toxic effects in the body. And when the drug is being used by generations, we can clearly say that they are safer, and thus they have a high success rate. If we support the statement by an example, Brahmi is one example. Brahmi is basically Bacopa monnieri, and Brahmi is being used since ages by our forefathers also for improving memory. And that information today has been scientifically validated, and it is well established that Brahmi is a well-known memory enhancer drug now, and it is also used in various other CNS disorders. Similarly, curcumin is another example. Curcumin is obtained from Curcuma longa, which we commonly known as haldi. Now, haldi is being used in our culture as well as in other Asian countries as a spice since ages, and earlier we used haldi as an antiseptic and for its wound healing properties. कभी भी हमने देखा होगा घर में कभी भी चोट लगती है तो आज भी लोग कहते हैं कि हल्दी वाला दूध पी लें तो जल्दी ठीक हो जाएगा. So this is the basic reason why haldi was known for its wound healing property. But when during the course of its scientific validation for its wound healing or antiseptic properties, various new uses of curcumin were discovered. Say, for example, curcumin has also shown anti-cancer activities. Curcumin has shown cardioprotective activities. Curcumin has also shown protective effect in various central nervous system disorders, specifically in neurodegenerative disorders. So these scientific studies of such drugs that have been used, that are in the system of use from generation to generation, they also help in discovering the new uses of those drugs, and curcumin is one such example in that aspect. Thus, we can say that systematic study of traditional herbal drugs, their formulations and ethnomedicine offer an exciting area of research on plant taxonomy. Since most of the herbal drugs that are lying, the information about those drugs lying untapped with those ethnic or tribal people, either we don't know about those plant species, or if we know about those species, then we can directly take those plant species into drug discovery process, or if we don't know about much about those plant species, then we can have a detailed taxonomic study on such plants. Similarly, cultivation and collection of medicinal plants. Now, there are certain plants for which cultivation and collection methods are well established, and various modification in those methods have been done for improving their yield as well as quality. But the plants with the information or the plants whose information is with those ethnic or tribal people, for them the cultivation and collection methods are not there, and there is a huge scope in developing the cultivation or collection method for such medicinal plants. Similarly, quality control aspects of those plants has not been established till date, and many of those plants we don't know about the quality parameters, how we can assess the quality of such plants. We don't have much more information, and there is a huge scope in establishment of the quality control parameters of those plants or herbal drug remedies. Similarly, what type of chemical constituents are present in those plants, and those plants that are being used by those tribal people, we have a very limited information. That also leaves a large gap for the phytochemical screening of such plants. Then the isolation of the active principles. Once we establish the phytochemical profile of those plants, what kind of chemical constituents are present in those plants, then we can also identify and isolate the constituents that are responsible for the biological activity of those plants. Then biological evaluation, since we know that those people or ethnic or tribal people are using that plant or their remedies or different recipes for a particular disorder, but as I earlier told you that these have not been scientifically validated or not biologically evaluated using modern scientific methods. So there is a huge scope in that area as well, and that evaluation as well as establishing quality parameters, isolation of active principles, all these steps lead to the new drug discovery. The next area is the bio and agrotechnology of herbal drugs. Now, we have seen in the past few decades that there has been a surge in the use of herbal drugs for the treatment of various disorders, and these herbal drugs are used as such, or there are multi-drug recipes available or formulation available that are used for different kinds of disorders. And with this surge, the surge in the use of herbal drugs, the demand for good quality, effective and safer medicinal herbs has also increased. We also discussed in the previous lecture that most of the supply of herbal drugs to the industry is made through the collection of the raw material from the wild sources. And the people who are collecting those herbal drugs, they are not technically equipped with the information of that particular drug. So we can say the person hires laborers, and these laborers collect the herbal drugs from the wild sources. And if a drug is having a similar morphologically similar species growing along with it, that different species is also collected, considering that this is the same plant material that is required by the industry. That leads to certain quality as well as safety issues with the herbal drug, and I must tell you that this is the major bottleneck in the usage of herbal drug across the globe. Since there is a surge in the use of herbal drugs, the demand of herbal drug basically outnumber the supply of those herbal drugs, and there is a huge demand of herbal drugs by the industry. This indicates a bright future of industrial pharmacognosy for commercial production of high yielding varieties of medicinal plants and biologically active natural product. So obviously when the demand of herbal drug or herbal based drugs increases, there is a huge scope or future in industrial pharmacognosy, and to fulfill the demand of the industry, basically there is a huge scope in developing various cultivation methods or agro techniques for the production of high yielding varieties. And these high yielding varieties, not only the crop yield should be higher, but these high yielding varieties should have a high percentage of the required bioactive constituent. Bioactive constituent is the constituent that is responsible for the biological activity of the plant. No doubt we have developed certain cultivation and collection techniques for various commercially important plants till date, such as Vidania somnifera, ginseng, ginkgo biloba. We have better cultivation techniques using modern agro techniques. We have developed their cultivation methods and collection methods. So in order to provide high yielding crop as well as good quality crop in terms of the bioactive constituent content is concerned. Apart from that, there is a huge scope in development of agro techniques for other plants as well. Now, one aspect is we can develop the cultivation of cultivation methods for those medicinal plants, and the second method by which we can improve the crop yield as well as the quality is by using biotechnological methods such as plant tissue culture or bioreactor technologies. Now we know that the secondary metabolites that are produced by plants are due to the production of due to certain genes or proteins present in the plant, and we can use that information and imply that information in modern methods such as plant tissue culture or bioreactor technology to improve the overall crop yield as well as the quality of that particular medicinal plant. So modern biotechnological, bioinformatic and high throughput analytical approaches have created enormous opportunities to study medicinal plant at gene, protein and metabolite level. So once we come across the genes that are responsible for the production of those biologically active secondary metabolites, and we can always enhance their pattern, and we can genetically modify that plant to further enhance the production of that biologically active secondary metabolite, so that we can get better quality plant material in terms of the bioactive constituent. Further, various proteins or enzymes that are responsible for that production, we can also augment their activity by in vitro methods in plant tissue culture to enhance the quality of the plant. Besides that, we can also play with the genes and the proteins that are responsible for the protection of those plants against various diseases or pests. Thereby this also helps in further increase of the yield of the crop, which also helps in the fulfillment of the demand that is being increased by the industry in today's world. So we can say that plant genomic and metabolomics are the robust strategies to address the quality concern of herbal drugs and medicinal plants. Now recently, thus the genomic pharmacognosy and metabolomic pharmacognosy are the recent branches that have been cropped up, and there is a huge amount of scope in these areas as well. And these have been deemed as a promising field of research to lead modern pharmacognosy that would definitely offer tremendous opportunities for higher education, cutting edge research and development of pharmacognosy in the current century. Hence, these genomic and metabolomic pharmacognosy are becoming an inevitable tool in modern pharmacognosy to study the genetic aspect as well as metabolic aspect of medicinal plants. And according to a recent survey in 2017, a complete genome sequence of only 225 to 240 plants has been established, and this also indicates a huge scope in this field as well, since there are around 5 lakh species of medicinal plants, and according to this survey, only 225 to 240 plants, the complete genome sequence of only 225 to 240 plants have been established. So there is a huge amount of scope in this field as well. So the next area is the quality control of herbal drugs. So quality control of herbal drug is a buzzword in today's pharmaceutical world, and those specifically those pharmaceutical industry that are dealing with herbal drugs. So as I earlier discussed, that most of the supply of the herbal drugs to the industry is after the collection of that herbal drug from wild sources, that is, that plant growing in its natural habitat, that is collected from there and is supplied to herbal industries. And then the person who are collecting that particular drug, they are not technically qualified, or they don't have technical insights about the plant, their morphological characters. So whenever if a plant is required by an industry and it is being collected from its natural habitat, and another plant that is growing in its close vicinity, if it is morphologically similar and cannot be differentiated on macroscopic basis or morphological basis, that plant is also collected and is supplied to the industry. Such issues lead to the quality issues of herbal drugs. Not only quality issues, they also lead to certain safety issues for those herbal drugs, and these safety issues I will discuss later on. So first we talk about the quality issues that are being seen by pharmaceutical industry. So from a regulatory perspective, the formulation of herbal pharmacopoeia and monograph is gaining increasing priority worldwide to standardize the natural medicine. And due to this reason, when the plant material is supplied to the industry, it is being observed that it also contain large amount of plant material which is either not required, or it is some other plant species when it is evaluated by the pharmaceutical industry. So now most of the regulatory agencies across the globe, they are working on development of pharmacopoeias, herbal pharmacopoeias and monographs, which involves the characters, morphological characters of the drug, microscopic characters of the drug, their analytical methods which shows the percentage of the bioactive content or any chemical constituent. We call it as a marker. So marker is any chemical constituent which is responsible, which helps in identification of a plant, or it is responsible for the biological activity of the plant. So we can say there are two types of markers. One type that is responsible for the biological activity of the plant, we call that type of constituent as biologically active markers compounds, and second is those constituents which are present in large amount in that plant, or they are specific to that plant and hence helps in identification of the plant, and such marker compounds are analytical markers. So in monographs, various methods are being given nowadays to estimate the content of those marker compounds. Now various efforts are being put in by various regulatory agencies such as Ministry of Ayush, that is Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani Siddha and Homeopathy, and Indian Council of Medicinal Research in India to develop various monographs and herbal pharmacopoeias. Then at global level, WHO, that is World Health Organization, is also working in direction of developing monograph of various herbal drugs. Then ESCOP, that is European Scientific Cooperative on Phytotherapy, they are also working on the development of monograph of various herbal drugs in Europe. So apart from these regulatory agencies, various commissions or pharmacopoeial commissions or councils such as Indian, American, British and Chinese herbal pharmacopoeial commissions or council, they are also working in the direction to develop more and more monograph of herbal drugs and their formulation to establish their minimum quality standard. So if an industry get a raw material from a supplier, they can always evaluate that raw material or the raw plant material by comparing the character of that material with those given in the monographs, official monographs, and they can conclude whether this raw material shall be used for the manufacturing of herbal medicine or not. So these monographs are of great help for the pharmaceutical industries. Similarly, European Directorate of Quality for the Quality of Medicines and Healthcare, that is EDQM, is also working for the development and coordination of official quality standards of medicinal substances, not only from the plants but also allopathic and homeopathic products as well. So next is the safety. Next area is the safety regulation of herbal drugs. We talked about the quality issues that are concerning the herbal drug industry and how we can overcome those quality issues by developing more and more monograph or pharmacopoeias, herbal drug pharmacopoeias, so that industry can always compare the raw material which they obtain from supplier for whether that is as at par with the quality standards given in those monograph or not. Now the second issue that arises due to the poor quality of the drug is the safety concerns of those herbal medicines. So I earlier told you that sometimes that different plant or morphologically similar plant is also collected by the collectors and is supplied to the industry. Now the plant that is morphologically similar to the required plant either will have a different activity, or that plant may also be toxic to the consumers. So such things raises certain safety issues by the use of those herbal drugs, and agencies across the globe are working on the safety issues of herbal drugs also. Now the Committee on Herbal Medicinal Products, that is HMPC, has established a regulatory body of the European Medicine Agency, that is EMA, for harmonizing of procedures and provisions concerning the safety and efficacy of herbal medicinal substances and their preparation. So this agency basically issue guidelines that should be acceptable at a global level, and most of the agencies also follow their guidelines regarding the medicinal preparation involving the herbal medicines or herbal drugs. The Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia of India is referred to as a legal document to regulate Ayurvedic medicines in India. We all know that Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia contain monograph of different drugs, but these pharmacopoeias provide macro and microscopic characters of the drugs that are mentioned, for which the monograph is being developed. The only concern is that the analytical profile of those drugs are not involved in these Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia monographs, but at present, the lot of work is being done by Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia Commission to develop the analytical profile and to incorporate those analytical profile in the monograph as well. Now there is an Ayurvedic formulary of India which has various Ayurvedic recipes, their standardized methods, their SOPs, how these recipes are to be prepared, what kind of raw material is required to prepare that particular formulation. So everything is mentioned in those Ayurvedic formularies, and the industries which are working in the field of manufacturing of Ayurvedic medicine, they can always consult Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia of India as well as Ayurvedic formulary for different recipes to avoid those safety and quality concerns in herbal medicines. But in many developing countries where the population largely depends upon the use of herbal medicine, they are still falling behind in regulating their natural medicine sector, and even they are lacking, but they are not doing anything to develop a regulatory framework for their natural medicine. So there is a huge gap in this area where pharmacognosy people or people who are studying pharmacognosy can fill that gap and help those countries, or they can help their own country to develop certain regulatory framework so that these herbal medicines can get under a regulatory perspective. So there is a huge scope for the pharmacognosy people where they can come forward and help the government or their country to develop certain regulatory framework for natural medicine, which is becoming an important sector in every country's economy as well. So next area is the scope of pharmacognosy in intellectual property rights in the field of herbal drugs. As we earlier discussed, that there is a large pool of knowledge regarding the herbal drugs and recipe that can be commercially, that information or pool of knowledge that is lying with those ethnic or the tribal people. And since such recipes or drugs are being used by them since ages, these drugs or recipes can be commercially exploited. But if somebody get an information about a particular recipe of those ethnic or tribal people, and he basically develop a commercial drug out of that and start earning benefits from the commercialization of that product, and he does not give any benefit to the bearer of the knowledge, that is those people who were bearing the knowledge of that particular recipe, and such an unethical practice is known as biopiracy. So we can define biopiracy as commercial exploitation of medicinal plant, ethnomedicine and traditional knowledge without giving benefits to the bearer of that knowledge. So this issue is nowadays cropping up because more and more people are exploiting that tribal or ethnic or traditional knowledge that is lying with those people, and they are developing certain commercial product out of those knowledge, and they are not sharing those benefit that are obtained from the commercial exploitation of that recipe or the drug that is obtained after from that traditional knowledge. So therefore the commercial exploitation and legal protection of traditional knowledge, ethnomedicine, medicinal plants and medicinal plant derived active principle are emerging issues that have to be addressed urgently. Now, various international bodies like WIPO, that is World Intellectual Property Right Organization, TRIPS, Trade Related Intellectual Property Rights, CBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity, are working in the direction of the giving legal protection to the bearer of traditional knowledge. So these regulatory agencies or these international bodies are making guidelines and certain legal documents by which one cannot go for biopiracy without giving any benefit to the bearer of that knowledge. Convention on Biodiversity has already given guidelines to ensure not only the traditional knowledge but also to ensure the access to the genetic resources and the fair and equitable sharing of benefit arising from the use of those genetic resources. Many times it happens that certain plant material or a variety is available in a particular geographical area or a particular country. So if a person after getting the traditional knowledge from traditional people that that particular plant can be used, say in a particular disorder, and if that person use that plant material from different country and prepare commercialized product from that plant resource without giving any benefit to the geographical location or the country where that plant is growing, that is also unethical. And to overcome such issues, CBD has issued guidelines for the utilization of such genetic resources. Now nobody can straightway go into a country and use its natural resources to develop commercial product. He or she has also to share the amount of proper amount of the benefits that arise after the commercial exploitation of that particular product. Even the Office of Control General of Patent, Designs and Trademarks of India have issued guidelines for processing patent application related to traditional knowledge and biological material. So what can be patented, what cannot be patented, all these guidelines are clearly mentioned and given by the Office of Control General of Patents in India. So by reading that document, one can see that if he wants to do a patent, if wants to procure a patent of that particular product, whether that product falls in the given guidelines. If it falls under those guidelines, he can get a patent. If that product doesn't fall under those guidelines, patent cannot be granted. Now, Government of India is also working on the development of Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, that is TKDL, where government is digitalizing all the traditional knowledge on a database, and this database is made available to the patenting agencies across the globe. So if a person is working on a plant that is being used in India since ages for a particular disorder, and suppose a person sitting in America working on that plant, and he wants to file a patent on that particular disorder, he cannot file. And if that plant is mentioned in TKDL, he cannot file a patent, because this plant has been traditionally used since ages in our country for that particular disorder. So this is the advantage of TKDL. Thus, there is an urgent need and scope for the integrated research in traditional medicine for bioprospecting of natural resources and securing intellectual property rights on the indigenous healing knowledge and technologies. Thus, we can see that there is a huge amount of scope or in this particular area where one can always work in the direction of bioprospecting and protection of the traditional knowledge which the people of his or her country are having, and they can always exploit that knowledge for the betterment of mankind by developing commercial products. But vis-a-vis, they also have to give the benefits, they have to share the benefits with the bearer of that knowledge, and they can always go for the commercial exploitation. Another important area is the veterinary drugs, and we all know that man since its evolution depend upon plants for food as well as its medicinal needs. Similarly, animals also depend upon plants for their food as well as medicinal needs. But very less work has been done on medicinal plants for the development of veterinary drugs. Though the plants have been studied a lot for their medicinal properties for humans, but for animals very less work has been done, and many plants have not been evaluated for their role in veterinary medicines. Furthermore, the materia medica of wild animals is an exciting field of research for the new drug discovery from natural sources. Thus, lot of work has to be done and can be done to develop a materia medica which binds all the knowledge of different plants that can be used in animals for treatment of various disorders. Now, besides all these areas that we discussed, there are certain other specialized areas that have been developed nowadays. One is development of extraction and isolation method of active constituents from medicinal plants. We all know that medicinal plants show biological activity by virtue of its chemical constituents or certain constituents that are produced inside the plants, and we call these constituents as secondary metabolites. Now, there are two types of metabolites that are seen in plant. One is a primary metabolite, and these metabolites are responsible or required for the growth of the plant or their normal physiological function. And these primary metabolites are carbohydrates, proteins and amino acids. Vis-a-vis, there are certain metabolites that are byproducts or end product of normal physiological functions, and these metabolites are known as secondary metabolites. And these secondary metabolites, examples are alkaloids, flavonoids, coumarins and so on. These secondary metabolites do not have their direct role in the normal physiological functioning of or the growth of the plant, but these secondary metabolites help plant in their defense mechanism. Moreover, these secondary metabolites are also important for human beings, as most of these secondary metabolites have shown certain biological activities that can be exploited for the betterment of humans and to fight to make humans able to fight against various disorders. Now, to isolate such bioactive constituent from plants which already contain hundreds of other constituents is like finding a needle in a haystack. So, specialized techniques or methods have to be developed by which we can isolate those active constituents, and not only we can isolate those active constituents easily, but those methods should be economically viable for the industry, so that industry can utilize those methods at large scale to isolate those active constituents. And such active constituents can either be used as drugs directly, or they can be used as a lead molecule or raw material or precursors for the development of newer drugs. Then the second emerging area is the study of the biosynthetic pathway of these secondary metabolites. Now we know that these secondary metabolites are being produced by plants as end products or byproducts of their normal metabolic pathways that are going inside the plant. And we have studied and we have elucidated various pathways of a number of chemical constituents, but there are numerous constituents for whom we have not been able to elucidate the biosynthetic pathway. So this is also an exciting area where one can always study and elucidate the biosynthetic pathway for certain secondary metabolites. Second, study on these biosynthetic pathway is important because by studying the pathway we come to know about various intermediates of that particular compound or the chemical constituent, and once we come to know about those intermediates, we can always design a synthetic process for chemical or purely chemical synthesis of the active molecule. Then next is the analytical pharmacognosy. This is an upcoming field because as I earlier discussed that quality and safety aspects of herbal drug is an emerging issue in today's pharmaceutical world. So analytical pharmacognosy is an emerging field because in this we develop various analytical methods for various herbal drugs by which we can analyze the content of the particular constituent, or we can always analyze the content of the constituent that is responsible for the biological activity of the plant, and if that constituent is known, we can always analyze its content. Further, after developing the analytical profile of a particular drug, we can always use that profile to certain its identity. Whenever an industry receives a raw material or a herbal drug to develop a herbal medicine, they can always develop an analytical profile of that raw material and can compare that profile with the profile given in the monograph or any standard document, and thereby they can ascertain whether the raw material which they have got is the required raw material or not. Next area is the clinical pharmacognosy. Now, clinical pharmacognosy is similar to that of clinical pharmacology, where all the diagnostic and the methods that are used for modern drugs are used for the herbal medicines. Because we know that very less work has been done in the area of safety profiling or herbal drug interaction of medicinal plants, and very few drugs, those drugs which are commercially very well exploited, for them we have developed safety profiles, but majority of the herbal drugs they lack the development, or we don't have the safety profile of those herbal drugs. Beside the safety profiles, we also don't have their interaction profiles, how these herbal drugs interact with other herbal drugs, or how these herbal drugs interact with the synthetic drugs if one consumes synthetic drug along with the herbal drugs. So whether these herbal drug affect the absorption or effect of those synthetic drug, or vice versa, synthetic drug affect the absorption or the efficacy of the herbal drug, we don't know. So this is an exciting area where one can always develop the profiles, the interaction profiles, the safety profile of such drugs. Another exciting area is the zoopharmacognosy. Now, in my first lecture, we discussed that man learned about plants by observing various animals as well. So, zoopharmacognosy deals by observing the animals, how they basically how they overcome or how they treat their disorders. And this area is now gaining popularity because more and more knowledge we are getting about the plants just by observing the behavior of animal. Various studies have been done in Venezuela, Costa Rica, and Japan, and across the globe where they observe the normal behavior of the animal. And in various studies it has been seen that the normal chimpanzees, when they allow to grow in their natural habitat, they basically consume a particular plant after a short period of time. though that when it was thoroughly studied, it was found that particular plant is not part of their normal diet, but occasionally they consume that plant. And when that plant was studied scientifically, it was found that that plant possess CNS stimulant properties. So we can always correlate that to overcome or to stimulate themselves, these chimps or chimpanzees or primitive animals, they basically consume that particular plant, and lot of work is now going on that particular plant for its CNS stimulant properties. Similarly, in another study, it was found that chimps basically rub their fur on certain plants. And when those plants were scientifically studied, it was found that these plants possessed insecticidal or pesticidal properties, and one can easily correlate that chimps basically rub their fur across those plants to get rid of those ticks and lices that are entangled in their fur. So zoopharmacognosy is another exciting area where one can always go for new drug discovery by observing animals only. Then industrial pharmacognosy, as we already discussed, that industrial pharmacognosy is now an upcoming area where one can always go with work with the help of biotechnological techniques like plant tissue culture, and further one can also develop new cultivation and collection techniques or improve those techniques by using modern agro techniques for the better quality and quantity of the plant material to fulfill the industrial needs. Moreover, various biotechnological techniques such as plant genomics and metabolomics, they are also helping in enhancing the quality of the raw material that is required by the industry. Last but not the least, that is the marine pharmacognosy. Now, during the beginning of this lecture, I mentioned that there are 2.2 to 2.5 million species of living organisms that are in sea, and 91% of those species are not being documented or catalogued. So this shows that there is a huge amount of scope in studying those living organisms or living species for drug discovery. Now, it's not that drugs have not been discovered or not in the market from marine sources. There are numerous drugs that have been approved by US FDA for various disorders, and such drugs are marine based drugs. For example, fucoidone is a brown green algae, and it's a polysaccharide, and basically that it is used as a nutraceutical, and recently fucoidone has also shown anti-cancer activities. Similarly, Averon and Averol are the drugs that are obtained from the marine sponges, and they have shown antiviral activities. So we can say there is a huge amount of scope in the development or discovering new drugs from the marine sources as well. Thus, we can say that there is a huge amount of scope in the different areas. If a person is studying pharmacognosy, he can apply that knowledge in different areas of sciences, of drug discovery processes, and can fully exploit that knowledge. So this was about the scope of pharmacognosy, and in the next lecture I will discuss about the sources of drug and their methods of classification. Thank you.